In this section, we're going to look at how backups are stored. So that is what exactly is written to the local disk or network drive or cloud location when you create a backup. So in order to explain this to you, let's work through a few examples. So I've created a backup of this site, the finance site, which sits in my demo tenant. And you can see the project group for that backup here on the right in the backup navigator. If I expand that out, we can see we've got a full, an incremental, a differential, and a recent full backup. So if I drill down into the most recent full backup and double click on this library here, confidential documents, you see there are 3 documents in that library that have been backed up, and there's all their metadata. If I right click on this library and choose open storage location, then that opens the location that the data is stored. So if I park that on the left and park this on the right, we can look at the sort of UX view versus what sits in the back end. So you can see on the right here, we've got 3 documents, confidential 1, 2, and 3. Then in the back end, we've got 5 documents. Now, the reason we've more documents sitting in the view at the back end is because each time a version of a document is saved, a discrete document is saved with the version number appended to it. So we have 3 versions there of confidential 1, and then 1 version of confidential 2, 1 version of confidential 3. Now, the other thing to be mindful of here is that all of these documents are backed up in their native format. So they're backed up in their Word format. If I jump to a different list, perhaps shared documents, where we've got more different types of documents there, you see that here we've got Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So everything is backed up in its native format. It's not changed into a proprietary format that belongs to Metalogix. And for this reason, if you wanted to restore your documents or browse to them outside of the tool, so rather than going through Essentials, you can, and you haven't made your backup redundant if sometime in the future you're no longer subscribed or using Metalogix Essentials. You can still browse to it. So staying in the back end, if I go up a couple of levels, so let's go up to the level above, lists, finance, archive data. In fact, I'll go one up again into the folder where I've created all my backups. So you'll see each time a backup is created, there's a folder for the project data, and then there's a folder for the actual data that's backed up. And if I browse into one of these, again, let's stick with the finance backup, MSTND 527566, double click on that, you see we have a folder for each time the backup has run, and those correspond to each time the backup has run here, and the folder has the date and time that backup was run. So for example, the first one there, 23rd of March 2017, 11:31. Look across here, 23rd of March 2017, 11:31. So you can browse into these quite logically. As you browse into them, we can browse into the data lists, and then you see we have a folder for each list, and we have a CSV for each of the list's metadata. So again, if I double click on confidential documents, that will open a CSV containing the metadata for all of those documents that have been backed up. So that's a view of the back end. It's very similar for the other types of jobs. So again, if I go up into the backup location here and look at perhaps the OneDrive backup. So here's the one I've created for the OneDrives. Drill down into that. Again, you have a folder for the time that was created, which will match here, 11:33 a.m. on the 23rd of March. Browse into that. You see we've got folders for each user whose OneDrive was backed up. Double click on those, go into the lists. There's a CSV for the metadata. Browse into the folder, and we see again a list of documents in their native format, much the same as the SharePoint backup. So finally, let's go and look at an Exchange backup. So here's one I've created, the Exchange backup for MSTND 527566. Again, we have a folder which will match the folder here, or the icon here for the date and time this was created. So 23rd of March at 11:44. I click into that, go into archive data, you see we've got a folder for each user whose inbox was backed up. Double click on those, and we see we have a list of their inbox folders that were backed up. And if I double click on one of those folders, we see a list of messages in the native .eml format. So that is a view into the back end of the backups that are created with Essentials for Office 365. And things to be mindful of when considering this backup are that it is very logical to browse outside of Essentials, and all of the items that are backed up in their native format, whether they're emails or documents, and as such, they're not a proprietary format that belongs to MetaLogix, and they can be restored outside of Essentials if that's a requirement.